Hello and welcome to the Off Grid Podcast. I am your host, Patrick, and today I have two guests with me. One of them is a former anchorman turned preparedness nerd, Jeffrey DeSocio, and another one here is a former Army engineer, Adam Nelson.
Mm-hmm.
Guys, thank you for joining me.
For
I
having
want to
us.
say this is our podcast's very first threesome, so
It's a throuple, right?
Okay, and we're
thank you for
right
joining
out
me
the
for that.
door. Here we go. Right on. Oh, this is going to get interesting. Stay tuned, folks.
Something I always start the podcast off with is just getting to know you guys a little better. Jeffrey, we'll start with you. Tell us your origin story, how you got here, and a little bit more about yourself and your background.
Well, thank you for having me, Patrick. Yes, obviously, my name is Jeffrey DeSocio. I am the content marketing specialist and advisor to Avon Protection. Yes, I do have a former career in broadcasting. I worked for about, well, if you count radio, about 25 years. I worked for a Fox News affiliate in Los Angeles. I mostly did tasked with largely breaking news stories, local, regional, national, and international. And I was also one of the founding producers of what you guys now know as Fox News Digital. Basically, we were looking for different ways to kind of take news stories and extend them beyond the television and onto digital platforms as they were emerging back then. I always tell people when people didn't know what to do with Twitter, we were experimenting by posting news stories to see how we could extend coverage. Left the biz in 2018 for reasons we probably won't get into here, but pivoted over to creative marketing, where I did several years in big tech. And being that I come from a military law enforcement upbringing and married into a law enforcement military upbringing, I wanted to try my role at marketing for defense.
Right on.
And in the wake of Avon Protection launching an e-commerce store to the civilian public after so many decades of just supplying military and law enforcement, they basically brought me on as a specialist and advisor to help them with their e-commerce initiatives and getting the word out there that these products are now available to them.
Adam?
Pretty boring story, if I'm being honest. I didn't do super good in college. When I fresh got out of high school, ended up joining the Army to get myself whipped into shape, so to say. So I figured engineering was what I was in school for before, so I'll do engineering in the Army. Loved working with explosives. I was a combat engineer. Worked trying to find IEDs in the desert, kind of thing. Anyways, got out for family reasons because I wanted to raise my kids at that point, and decided to go back to college, give a second shake at it again. First thing I noticed when I got there was a severe lack of explosives in the engineering field in the civilian side, so I feel like I was let down with that one, but I continued on. Ended up starting here at Avon as an internship, working in the filter technology group. So I was doing research and development for new filter technologies, anything and everything from industrial to military to law enforcement. So pretty broad scope there. Eventually, the director for the military side of sales took note of me, and with my background combined with my engineering background at that time, decided that I would be best suited here on the business development side. So I've really taken a weird amalgamation of not quite salesman, not quite engineer, bringing in new product development, getting customer feedback from the field, and what else can we push out there as new product or new maybe new ways of doing things.
Perfect. And Adam, I haven't had a chance to talk to you outside the podcast yet, but I have talked to Jeff quite a bit. So Jeff, we had discussed, just the importance of the like bringing more awareness to this type of product and why it's relevant in these days. Do you want to go into that a little bit more?
Yeah, I think the interesting thing that we had kind of iterated around when I came on board with Avon Protection is that the preparedness public, if you will, has kind of evolved. Traditionally, you think of people who are into preparedness and you think things like doomsday preppers or something that maybe kind of takes on a little bit of
A bad taste.
a negative tone. Yeah, exactly. And I think what came up there is that upon doing additional research into it, not to mention, I mean, my own personal involvement with it, but I think it has kind of gone more mainstream. But I think that there are lots of considerations to be had when people talk about preparedness, when people talk about like what you need. I tend to tell people preparedness is a journey. It's not a destination. I think you're always learning and prepping. And then trying to bring out the importance in the wake of certain current events and certain emergency situations that come up on why you would need respiratory protection in your go bag or first aid kit or bug out kit. And I think the key thing there is I almost kind of wanted to destigmatize the respirator a little bit, because you think of certain things that you have around your house, such as
Fire
a fire
extinguisher.
extinguisher under your sink, things like that. But people don't think, if they live in a wildfire zone or if they live near a chemical factory or a train yard or something like that, it would be a good thing, and it would be important for you to have this type of protection if ever you're given that call to have the need to escape or evacuate.
At the same time, though, we all have car insurance. We all have, let's say, a fire extinguisher underneath the kitchen sink. If you conceal carry, I mean, that's another level of preparedness. The first thing that comes to my mind is, what is your respiratory protection plan for anything? So, for example, like I keep NH15 escape hoods in my truck because they'll specifically fit children. It'll fit my 7-year-old. Things like chemical spills happen all too often, and you never know when it might be that particular situation for yourself. So, to Jeff's point, it is becoming more mainstream. Unfortunately, for horrible reasons, right? Because you always look at yourself and go, well, that could have been me, so now I should probably start doing it. And then I guess the worst case scenario of that would be it already happened to you, and now you're thinking about preparing for it. So, yeah.
I think that's a really good point, because I don't think very many people actually consider something like that. I know from my own personal experience, growing up and going through life, whenever I saw a respirator, it was on like a fireman going into a burning building, right? And then in my military experience, we only thought about it like, okay, they're using chemical warfare or biological agents, so we have to have a pro mask, right? But in light of some terrible semi-current events, that train derailment in Palestine,
East Palestine, Ohio,
LA,
was absolutely terrible.
the LA fires, right? Just, you don't realize how much you take breathing clean air for granted until something terrible brings that to the forefront.
And the threat may not be immediate either. The threat may not be right now. The threat may actually be 25 years from now. So I'm an avid shooter. I've been shooting since I was a young kid. When I was in high school, I did like local level competitions, nothing crazy. But all of that blowback from those munitions going off, that could be cancerous 25 years from now. Same thing with lead levels in your blood. Fortunately, now we're starting to get more aware of that in the shooting community. But then taking it to that DoD side, like you were talking about, handling JP8 or being around burn pits or all that stuff, it's not immediately dangerous to your life and health. But 25 years from now, I want to make sure that you're still breathing and you don't have any sort of cancers popping up.
So Avon Protection, you guys are both working for that company. Is it just is it masks just for military people? Like what's the availability of something like this? Because when I moved, spoiler alert, you guys, I moved to California. Don't judge me. Don't hate on me.
Hey, I lived there for nearly 3 decades, man. So I'm not hating on that.
I'm pure, and I've never been there, so
it's a beautiful place. It's hot and it's dry, so wildfires do happen. And one of the things that instantly popped into my mind was like, I'm going to get some respirators to put in my truck, right? In case,
Right.
there was a fire and I had to drive through it, right? I could put that on and breathe clean air. But I got my stuff from Amazon, right?
You and a lot of
Oh,
people,
Adam, you're going to have
unfortunately.
fun with this
Yeah,
part.
I know. I
Yeah,
know.
yeah. So let's talk about that a
Yeah.
little bit, because like what are the difference between these like $15 Amazon respirators and what you guys have going on, and just like what's the overall availability to the public versus the military?
Adam, educate the man.
Yeah, yeah. So when it comes to buying any type of protective equipment, whether it be a ballistic helmet, whether it be a respirator, body armor, even the ammunition you're putting in your gun, right? You always want to know what the quality of that product is. You always want to know where it came from. You want to know how they're producing it, things along those lines. When you're buying that stuff on Amazon, I challenge anybody to go through that and track where that product came from. What distributors was it going through? What are the quality processes that it went through? How did it reach your doorstep? And you know that when you have that filter, it's going to continue to work, or it will even work with the first step of putting it on. We do a lot of product testing here at Avon, and there it is a staggering amount of product in the field that just blatantly doesn't work. Um, so 100% comes down to the confidence is what you're paying for over that $15 filter. You're paying for the confidence level that with whatever you purchase from us, it's going to come from a level of quality that U.S. manufacturing can deliver.
Is there a way that we might be able to do some sort of self-testing, like if we're not sure what kind of quality we're dealing with, like how can we tell?
Yeah, so initially, you would probably not do self-testing. You would look at what sort of certifications that product holds. For example, everything that you see me behind here on this wall, these are all NIOSH certified. They're CE certified, so some type of ABEX standard for the filters or CE for the mask. And the reason we do that is now you don't have to take our word for it, because obviously we would be biased, right? We make the best product in the world. But now you can look at a third-party non-biased institute like, say, NIOSH, and then they've done all that testing and they've been able to give their seal stamp of approval. We're incredibly transparent about that. So if you look at any of our technical data sheets, which are on the website on the right-hand side of the page under the resources tab, all of our certifications and our gas times are on each one of those products for, say, the filters. So you can take that and understand that, hey, there's no way they would have this NIOSH logo on here or this CE logo on here if it wasn't legitimate, right? Now, of course, we do our own testing. We have our own chem lab inside of the facility. So with that to be said, you can go through that same technical data sheet and we'll give you essentially approximation of what the shelf life of the filter is, but also the breakthrough times of that filter in certain environments, certain gases, at certain concentrations. We try to give you as much power as you can to be an educated buyer, because without that, again, it's I don't know what I have in my hand, right? Every filter on the outside looks the same.
Yeah, and that was going to be one of my next questions. Is you mentioned NIOSH and CE. What are those standards? Like, what does that mean to the average person?
So
I'll let you take that,
NIOSH,
Jeff.
yeah, sure. Thank you, Adam. Yeah, NIOSH, the National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health, answers to the CDC. It is a standard by which that basically certifies a particular type of protective equipment to uphold to basically what it says it can do. So I do know, and Adam can get in a little deeper on that, on the types of testing they do. They are, in order to kind of hold that certification, they will conduct visits and audits at random. They will test products at random. Avon Protection has to be ready at all times for that in order to kind of maintain that standard. CE or I know I'm going to botch this. Conformity European is a similar standard, but the difference there is it's kind of more of a one and done. Certain products that are primarily tested in Europe or Asia usually will go for this type of standard. And from what I've been told, it's not as rigorous, it's not as thorough, and it's almost kind of a situation where you can pick your lab for the testing. it's kind of a one handshake deal type of, not to say that it doesn't work. It just doesn't achieve that particular type of standard that, say, the NIOSH certifications do.
So when you're looking at NIOSH, there's one lab in the US that does it. It's the same group of people that do it. It's the same standards.
Right.
You can't get away
Right.
from it. When it comes to the CE standard, there are labs that are certified to that standard, and you can pick which lab you want to go to some degree. So the quality of that certification may actually be that investigatory on your end of
Right.
what lab did you pick. So for example, on the Avon side, we picked the most rigorous lab possible in order to go through. So we have agreements with them where they can audit our product, they can go through our product, because that holds weight for the end user of, well, which lab did you pick? How do I know that that's one of the good labs, or if it is a good lab? And it's like, well, look at the standards that we have to go through to hold this through them, right? So yeah, there's a difference between the two. Absolutely, there is, but they're both quality standards, and so long as you're holding up to it, it's a good product.
So you guys, does Avon test some of like the competitors, like less expensive, less rigorously vetted filters then,
Mm-hmm.
I assume?
Yeah, absolutely.
What have you guys seen as a result of that testing? I'm
Oh, Adam,
curious.
see,
Like
I see you're smiling, man.
stuff that has
I'm just
stuff
going to
that
kind of
has
step to
isn't
the side
NIOSH or
like
CE
this.
certified. Like what
Um,
happens to that?
so at Avon, we don't just adhere to the standard. We always go above the standard, especially when it comes to our filters and our masks. The standard's the baseline. That's a C grade level, right? Like everyone can meet the standard. That's the bar of entry. How do we do better than that? Okay, so we've tested filters in here that have actually met the standard and do have certifications, but they don't hold the Avon standard. Um, that to be said, without naming names, we've definitely put filters inside of just our standard quality control process that our product goes through on a daily basis in order to leave the door. And we've had some pretty staggering results. One of those being we've had filters literally break open,
From
borderline
competitors.
explode
Yeah.
from competitors. So we have a device that rough handles the filters. And in our eyes, it rough handles it to a standard at which your normal everyday soldier, your police officer, somebody would be going through, right? That mask, the chance of you using it is less than 1%. At least we hope, right? We cross fingers for that. But the chance of you beating it up in that leg carrier, using it as a pillow and in your bivouac and everything else, the chances are a lot higher. So I want to know that when you take that filter out, you put it on that mask and you wear it and you take your first breath in, that you have complete reliability in that. So with that idea of robustness, um, we've had a lot of competitor filters essentially fall apart at the first step. After that, if they survive that, then what we would do is put them through the same gas trials that we put our filters through. So we would rough handle our filter. We would then put it in the lab, put some type of chemical through it, and then we would time how long it takes for that chemical to reach the other side of the filter. We call it their gas breakthrough time. Um, what filter might look completely normal on the outside because it made its way through the rough handler and didn't explode. By the time it got to the lab, it's an immediate breakthrough. So your first breath would have been your last breath, essentially. So we ended up our process is if that filter can't pass rough handle and then pass the gas tester at expected results or better, that batch of filters doesn't go out the door. Just that's it. We'll eat the bullet on that. But unfortunately, and that's what I meant by they may look exactly the same on the outside. You don't know what's going on the inside of that filter.
I'm curious, what kind of gases do you guys test? I mean, like what particulate size do you test against? Because I'm thinking, okay, so gas is one thing, but now I'm also
Mm-hmm.
thinking, because of like the whole pandemic thing, like
Mm-hmm.
viral
Or the
agents and
wildfires for that matter. Maybe
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
outside
absolutely.
and you're thinking about the fire, but you're not necessarily thinking about the combustible byproducts that are kind of going up in the air due to the fire.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You're not
Absolutely.
thinking about the chemicals or the paint siding or the asbestos or anything else as you're trying to flee a neighborhood that much like you saw
Yeah, or
in Los
people's
Angeles.
cleaning supplies under the sink that are
Everything.
now boiling and cooking off.
Correct.
Absolutely.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's actually a pretty complex topic to build what we would call an overhaul filter for a fire department. So the fire's been put out, they're going through the smolder, and they're wearing something on their face to filter that out. Typically, when you build a filter, it's for targeted gases, it's for targeted contaminants. But to your point, a house is filled with so many different things that you're
So
using
many.
such a broad range of protection. It can be very challenging. But to your point, the things that we test, we've tested everything from chemical warfare agents, common industrial chemicals, things along those lines. I don't want to get too specific into that. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But what we do test for very specifically, you can find on our technical data sheets as well. So things that are on there would be like ammonia, sarin, chlorine, NO2, all sorts of stuff, right? So
Toxic industrial
yeah,
chemicals,
you
toxic
can
industrial
find
materials.
a list of what we would test on those technical data sheets. We're incredibly transparent with what our product is. But to your point, the particulate filters, okay? So every one of our filters has a P100 filter in it. It is the highest rating that you can get from NIOSH for particulate protection. So that's everything from your funguses, your viruses, your oil and water-based mists, bacteria, so on and so forth. And we actually 100% test every one of those filters that go out the door. So on the assembly line, we have a device that puts a certain amount of oil through the particulate filter at a certain rate, and it will detect how much of that oil has passed through on the other side. And we have to be better than 99.97% of particulate going through the other side. So that means that we are filtering down to 0.003 or no, I said that wrong. 0.03 of the amount of oil that we've put through, and that's a challenge. That's an incredibly hard challenge to get through the filter and still have it breathable, and still have it relatively easy to breathe through, so it's not laborious. So when it comes to our particular protection, I would call us industry leaders.
So I'm for people who can't see, I'm looking at your wall behind you there, Adam, and I'm seeing like some filters look like a coffee can, like half
Yeah.
of a coffee can sticking out the
Right.
side. Some of them are a little thinner.
Yeah.
Like
I can grab one. Tell me which one you want.
like let's
That's
let's
a nice
do this.
mask you got behind you there, Patrick.
I'm going to
just
get
saying,
into that.
We're
I'm
just
going to get
kinda,
into
yeah,
that.
all right.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right, we're gonna go
So
there.
let's pick your most robust one.
Okay.
And let's compare it to maybe something that's like a little more expeditious, I would say.
Okay, expeditious. So then I
Yeah.
got something on the stand I'll bring over that's unfortunately not available in the Sylvia market, but it's definitely expeditious. So
Okay.
you talk about the person that's going to beat the crap out of your product the most is going to be your pissed off specialist or E3 or E4 who doesn't want to be in the field and will treat their equipment like absolute crap. And you know what? I'm here for you, buddy. I was there. I didn't get out. I didn't get out as an officer. I left the army as an E4. So E4 Mafia all the way.
E4 Mafia.
So to that point, the M50. This is essentially what put Avon protection on the map. We made gas masks before that. We made them in World War II. We were a rubber manufacturer for a long time. But in terms of the protection side of things, it was always just like a thing that we did. And then Avon Protection came about because of this mask in 2009. So this is the general issued mask for everyone inside of the DoD. And because of that, it has to be incredibly robust. Okay, so you have the twin filter design, which is great for lowered breathing resistance, but also maintaining that same level of protection. And then again, like I said, using this as a pillow, I can tell you that happens because of my own experience. This can be completely scrunched up, and it pops right back out.
If you guys can't see this, like if you're listening to this, the eye shield he has on there, that clear plexiglass looking stuff, he's like bending it in, he's like crinkling it like paper,
completely contorting it,
and it's coming right back into shape. That's insane.
And that's the thing too, that a lot of some other companies out there who are kind of putting out their respiratory products, it's like, I dare you to try that with them. What if you're in a situation where you need to? Will that work? Will it compromise the safety or the barrier in that mask if you try to do that the way that Adam just did?
Yep.
sorry, and so if I'm not mistaken, I've got something similar
Yes, you
right
do.
have
behind
it?
me in my podcast background. So before that was up there, I had like the old school Army issued like Seaburn mask with like the green canister.
The
You
The
could
old
screw
school
M40.
it
pro mask. Yeah.
screw it into the side. Yep.
I
And that
basically met with Patrick and I was like, hey, that's really nice background you got there. You need a new mask though. So yeah.
I'm telling you, so like we trained with those M40s a lot, right? With like CS and whatever. We had them overseas. And the difference between the two is night and day. Not only in like comfort and breathability, but like how you were showing how you can just you
Mhm.
can crumple it up and stuff it and whatever and not have to worry about it in the future. It's just amazing. I can't believe that kind of technology exists. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
that is a hard one technology too, and it's something that we're really proud of. That's a flexible resin visor that we cast in house with our own proprietary technology of how to do that. It is something that is it's a treasure to us. It was a really hard one technology, but because of that, we've been able to use that same technology for the M69, which was an aircrew mask. So it's rated to be able to be used on an aircraft, which is a really big deal.
Yeah.
That's a really, really big deal. The Air Force has some pretty stringent quality control programs, so they made sure that we were on our P's and Q's when making that one.
And
Why can't
that's the
the
thing.
Army have those standards? Come on, Army.
Well,
Get
hey,
get it together. Like work with the Air Force on that.
absolutely.
Um, so, so what's the like the one of your more expeditious models? Like
Ah,
something I know like that is it the M80 back
Yeah.
there? Like that's yeah, you got to put that on. You got to take a little time to strap it in. Like what's something that's just bam, you can throw it on and
Oh,
call it a
something you can
day.
just throw on? Okay. I took expeditious something else. My bad. Let me
Okay,
push
well
this
let's
out of the way.
hey
No, it's
now
fine. You
no
didn't
no
want
no
to see
no
it.
no
It's
no
okay.
bring that back. Bring that back. Now I'm intrigued. What is going on here?
So, okay. So,
that's our
aside
beast.
from general Army issue, then you also have specialist Army issue. So, SOCOM, we won the contract for the SOCOM mask with the M53A1. So, this is kind of going back to your M40 a little bit. The filter's only on one side. You have a nice, slick, flat cheek for shooting. Normally, when I recommend somebody shooting a gas mask, I think they should use like a 1.93 riser or higher, 2.26. But for this one, you don't need that at all. It conforms to the rifle stock. It has some grip on here, so it actually feels really natural when you shoot. That was one of the requirements for SOCOM was I have to be unencumbered when firing my weapon system. Now, of course, SOCOM does cool things, and most of it they can't talk about, which is really annoying from a business development standpoint of like, come on, I'm trying to build stuff for you, and you won't tell me what you're doing. So one of the things that they absolutely wanted was the ability to run this on a positive pressure system. So it has a quick on-the-fly change up here. It's going to be kind of hard to see, but on the camera, there's a valve right here that can swap back and forth. We're pretty much the only company that's fielded something like that. That's quick, rapid change, and will work with some type of positive pressure system. And then our ST54 also runs a PAPR, the contained air, and then this one has something really special on it, the auto filter covers. Again, I'm biased. I was a filters engineer for a while. Protecting your filters is like the number one thing. So if you're in the environment where you're using this tank, you should be protecting your filters, right? So this automatically closes when you turn the pressurized air on for this tank. Now, in terms of expeditionary, this is the reason I brought that up. Is like this is going to be in all the dark holes on the planet with some SF dude who again probably hates his life, but he's Charlie Mike on a
Subterranean
super
warfare.
ridiculous mission.
Yeah.
Subterranean warfare, super contaminated zones, things along that lines. But I think you were probably asking about the escape hood, which is more expeditious to put on when you need to, right?
Like yeah, quickly,
Okay.
Yeah.
because something that doesn't require much thought. I think that that SOCOM variant, you probably spend a little
Well,
time getting armored up,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
And
But
you're
if
also thinking about like, I'm sure some of your viewers out there are like, well, can I buy that? We
Yeah.
do have a similar mask that does have that positive pressure, negative pressure adjustment on it. But it is slightly different variant as compared to the military model.
okay,
Yeah, so for quick and rapid put on,
I
First
was going to
off,
say, who was your editor at Concealment at CanCon that he kind of walked up? He's like, "Can I try this really quick?" And it was actually really great to get his opinion on it. And
Yeah,
have
Dave
that
Merrill.
filmed.
Dave Merrill took this one for a test drive, and he was kind
In
of
100-degree
surprised
heat, he was a brave man.
yes, he
Yeah,
was.
so
I give him
the
kudos.
NH15, this is a CBRN rated escape hood. It comes in a incredibly small form factor right here.
I was going to say
So
I might have one right.
this would have a case with it, so you could wear it on your belt or wear it on Somali, but it's just vacuum sealed in a small little pack like this. From there, you can pull this out, and then the donning procedure is all like Ace Ventura Pet Detective when he's
Oh,
coming out of
stop
the
with the Ace
Rhino.
Ventura
I
thing
love
already,
Ace
man.
Ventura Pet Detective. It's a
God, he gives
classic.
that reference, and
It
I
is a
just
Love it.
cringe.
So you
classic.
put this over your head. The head harness in here will auto locate to where your head is. Your Mo's put into the nose cup in the inside, and you have 15 minutes insurance policy to get out of any really bad situation that you might possibly be facing.
So 15 minutes. I'm assuming that's the maximum you're going to have, like pure filtered air. Is it like a gradual decline after that, or like how far can you push that? Understanding
So
after 15 minutes, you're not breathing as clean of air as you probably want to be.
it's 15 minutes at the testing standards that we put into it. So this is a really quick down and dirty of what that means. If you open up the TDS, technical data sheet, and you look at the product, and in there it says X amount of part per million, 15 minutes. If that part per million is halved, say it's a million and it goes down to 500,000, that 15 roughly translates now to 30. Generally speaking, again, this is like 30,000 foot view at the subject. If you half that again, it doubles again. If you double the concentration, then it halves your time, right? So that's the reason why we put those concentration levels, those challenge levels on that TDS, is so you can generally go, okay, well, I'm sure with escape hood, you probably don't have the TDS out in front of you, but you can generally make an assumption of, well, around this or around that. Now, as a general rule of thumb of what I practiced inside the U.S. Army, and I don't know if this still holds true or not, but this is just how we practiced, was you took the lowest performing time on there, and that was your filter swap out time. So whatever was the worst performing gas, no matter whatever it is that we were facing, that's when we did our filter swaps.
And you also, Adam, you had brought up to me one time about, once you break the seal on a filter, right? And you're already kind of viewing that filter as like used. For anybody out there that are thinking, the escape hood might be a good idea, or a full face respirator might be a good idea, explain that philosophy to me and to Patrick again, because it was really interesting to put that consideration out there when choosing a correct filter.
Yeah, so generally speaking, as soon as you open a filter out of the package, it's generally speaking used. If I were to say, Patrick, here's a filter that's been out of the package, and say it's been out of the package for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and I said, how much life is left in that filter, what would you tell me?
I mean, me personally, if it hasn't been exposed, like if it hasn't been, if I wasn't breathing through it, right? So nothing's being inhaled through the filter, I would think that it's probably still has a decent chunk of life left in it. And
Maybe.
that's just where my mind goes.
Maybe. I don't know. That's the part that I can't tell you is I don't know. I don't know how much humidity has been soaked through that filter in that time. I don't know how hot it was in that room, how cold it was in the room. I don't know what sort of contaminants inside of your basement it may have possibly absorbed because it's directly under the kitchen sink and there's stuff under the kitchen sink.
You live
It's
near a
not
freeway,
about,
you're in California.
It's not about how much you think it may absorb. It's about the unknown of what you don't know. So that's why I always look at any filter that's out of the package, that's used, okay? So the way that I get around that, and the way that I usually tell my customers to get around that is, because I'm a realist, I recognize that this is an emergency device, and when you put it on, you should probably have a filter connected to it. I take a look at any of these filters on the wall, and I would go, I would put this on my face, and then the time that filter is buying me to use, or that time that filter is buying me, I'm now opening a new package to put fresh filters on, because then I know, as a matter of fact, I have X amount of time until I need to swap out to a new filter.
Okay. So okay, that escape hood, right? Now that's a one and done thing, right?
One and done.
That's not something you'd replace filters
Yeah,
with.
that's
Absolutely.
and that's the interesting thing about it is because we do have this available in our public online store. And, I have gotten asked, why invest the money into something that you can only use once? And, my answer to them would be, this is definitely an insurance policy. If you have to tear this open, it's kind of like your colleague said, if you've got to break this open, it's not going to be a fun moment, but it will buy you that crucial time. And there have been situations, particularly with current events over the past year, that could warrant the use of something like this. Tanker spills with ammonia in it that breaks apart when they're getting T-boned, and then they have to evacuate a mile radius. A chlorine factory caught fire in Georgia. They evacuated
Coincidentally, like down
17,000.
the road from one of our employees.
Yeah.
So that really drove it home.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, and that thing, it was like 17,000 were evacuated. 90,000 were told to shelter in place and not turn the air conditioner on. So it's
in Georgia.
I don't know about you. I'm getting out of there, especially if an evacuation order comes down. And that's something where if you can already tell what's in the air or see what's in the air, this is going to buy you that crucial time to get out of that danger area.
That sounds like a really irresponsible advice. Like, just stay there and don't turn on your AC, because if you're like, if every crack in your house isn't like caulked tight, or like sealed completely tight, stuff is still getting in.
Yeah.
I think authorities were still assessing on just how much of that burned chemical was getting up into the atmosphere around that local area, around that danger area. You think East Palestine, Ohio, that train derailed, and I think there was a reported 6 different toxic chemicals that were on that train. And then when they started to kind of burn that off, that's where the real, nastiness kind of began. And nobody was the wiser about it and didn't think anything about that in terms of whether or not they should stay in place or whether or not they should get out of that danger area.
It's always about the question of the unknown.
So this has got me thinking now. I think there's a lot of myths out there of like people, or instances of people improvising a filter, right? Yeah, I've seen it in movies. I've seen like people, do things like I'm gonna cover my face like this, or I'm gonna pee into my t-shirt, and that's it's gonna filter out like the stuff. Like, what myths are out there that you guys can think of, and let's debunk some of them.
Okay.
Like, let's have the audience walk away with a more informed decision-making process.
Cloth masks do not work.
Yeah. Well, so the biggest one that I always face, and there's the reason I have a mustache, is because I don't care if you can get a negative pressure check on your mask when you have a beard. I genuinely don't care, because I can tell you mathematically that it's not working. I can 100%. I can test it. I've done the tests. Avon does this test constantly. We just got done doing this test with the U.S. government a little while ago to finally put to bed that you can't do it. So essentially,
if you have a beard, if you're one of us bearded folk, you're screwed no matter what.
So no, it's not. This is the hard part, because
he's putting you on the spot now.
Yeah, I know
this
it is.
Is not a drill.
I appreciate it. I want it.
Trained for.
This is what everything I've trained for. So it's 100% depends on the threat that you're coming across, right, and what your tolerance to risk is. Okay. If I have a giant bushy beard and I'm trying to wear a mask and I'm going to go into an environment full of sarin where a pin drop of it is going to kill you, probably not a good idea. And now you need to think for yourself, the more and more you trim that beard back, right? Where are you comfortable where that tiny little pinprick could possibly kill you? Okay. I personally would only be shaved. That's it. That is the end all be all discussion. I wouldn't even have a mustache. If I knew tomorrow I was going to go to Iraq and there's a possibility of nerve agent coming down, there's not even a discussion about it for me. Now, when it comes to some of our, say, our law enforcement friends, and they have some stubble or they have very short beards, maybe even like yours, and they're using CS or CN or OC, even if, right? So the book answer is still be
That's
shaved,
riot
right?
gases to you
Yeah,
folks.
I'm sorry, that's riot gases. So riot control agents. The book answer is still be shaved, right? So that's the right answer. That's the OSHA answer. That's the NIOSH answer, so on and so forth.
Grooming standard.
But we can also look at this as a, well, if I got a little bit of woof of CS in my mask, it's not going to kill me, right? It's going to be an irritant. It's going to be annoying maybe, but it's not going to kill me. Now I'm sure somebody out there is going, I know somebody that's allergic to CS and they would die in one whiff, and I'm sure I've heard all the stories in the world, right? Everyone's always willing to tell you that you're wrong, but the fact of the matter is the risk for that is a lot lower than it would be for sarin, right? So make the best decision you can for you. But the other thing I'll go on to is the jelly, petroleum jelly in your beard. Oh, that will help me with the seal. All right,
Oh, yeah. And where
we've
did that
done this.
originate, Adam? Like
We've done
warfighters
this.
were considering it? Yeah.
Warfighters are considering. We've done this testing, and I personally have done it in a gas chamber with CS. And I'll tell you that it really, really sucks because now you have this petroleum jelly all around your face, and the sticky thing turns out that it likes to stick to stuff. So now I have super high concentrated CS gas in a ring right around my face, and it's just burning incredibly intensely, just absolutely destroying the side of my head. Did it get in the mask? No, it didn't. Still really sucked. And then let's say you're using this in a worst case scenario. Let's go back to the sarin thing. Okay, I'm going to put petroleum jelly around my face. One little prick of it will kill you, right? Now I have a ring of concentrated sarin right around my mouth, eyes, nose, and ears. Probably not the best idea because you always have to consider you're going to be in the environment with the mask on. How do you get out of the environment and decon? So when I start washing my head off or I start scrubbing my face and I'm trying to avoid all that stuff getting into my mouth and nose, you go try to take a shower and hold the
It's
top of
chaos
your
theory.
head,
Yeah.
right? And tell me your face doesn't get wet. So sorry, passionate
Not a
about
good
that
day.
one. So tired of hearing about petroleum
There
jelly and
have been
beards.
people out there that have kind of tested gas masks, particularly on the internet, and you'll see these guys with giant beards, and they'll hop into a truck and all put on their masks and pop a can, and of course they're kind of wondering why they're getting affected, or even when they take it off that they're kind of affected. And I think that we had explained to some people once that it's kind of like a chain link fence. And it just depends on the size of the particulate that's going to slip through that chain link fence, right? And your beard is going to act like that. So it's you want to eliminate all chance of that at all and not have that seal broken. I've had the pleasure of actually documenting some gas testing that we've done, and I was sure to Adam's like, hey man, shave. No worries. I didn't want to be affected.
I was going to ask about that because now I'm curious. I mean, what's the threshold? I mean, your beard's always growing, right? And you can't guarantee you're going to be perfectly, baby face smooth. When you need to be. So is there like a stubble length threshold?
So the documentation is going to say clean shaven. Now, I recognize that's a crappy answer, and I apologize. But what I will say is, so that government testing that we did a little while ago, we had 24 participants. They came in clean shaven, and then we tested with the mask. All 24 passed. Okay, so they passed the fit test. They had protection factors in the 20,000s, which is the best you can possibly get. All right. From there, 21 days away, they were allowed to grow out their facial hair. Now, full transparency, this was done at an institution that was full of scientists and everything else. So some of them had super awesome beards and some of them had very patchwork beards. A lot of white lab coats, right? And when they came back, we shaved down their beard to exactly 1/4 of an inch, right? So it didn't matter what you came in with, it was going to come down to 1/4 of an inch. All of them failed. 24 participants immediately failed every one of the fit tests. So somewhere between clean shaven and 1/4 of an inch, you're good.
Okay.
And then you're also bad. So
shave.
So shave.
This podcast brought to you by Gillette
Now,
razors.
there's an exception to this whole rule, okay? And it's going back to the NH15. Right. So because the typical gas mask seals around right where your beard is and up by your forehead, the NH15 seals down by your neck. So you don't have any hair down here, right? Even if you have a neck beard going on, like we all do on the weekend when we don't want to shave, you can still drag it down below that line here, right? So for our bearded friends, the NH15 would be a solution for you.
And that's assuming you don't have like a super belly button length Santa Claus beard, right? Because then you'd have to try
ZZ
to
Top or something
you'd try
like
to
that.
have to
Yeah.
stuff that up in there somehow.
I've seen people do it.
Yeah.
I've seen
Roll up
people,
them.
essentially roll it up
Tuck
and
it.
then
Oh,
shove
nice.
it into the mask up in the top. As long as it's not breaking that seal. Now, I'm sure you can have a beard that's big enough to where what I just said doesn't work. But I'll say this: you get a lot more forgivingness out of that neck dam than you are going to get out of that face seal on the mask.
So what about like some? So I'm just gonna go out and assume that since maybe just the tiniest little bit of stubble could break your seal, that you know, the mask that you get at the doctor's office, or you know, peeing into your shirt probably isn't going to do too much to
No.
stop whatever you're facing.
Like, I'm going to walk away from this podcast and start looking that up. Like, what was he talking about?
The pee in the shirt thing came from World War One, when they were coming across agents that were being released on them. Their idea was you pee in your shirt, and the ammonia from your pee would help essentially block or absorb, or I don't know what the logic was, about
like
being
a jellyfish
honest.
sting or
Yeah,
something
it
like
would
that.
it would stop some of that. Now,
neutralize.
every story has a kernel of truth somewhere. Maybe a unit did it and had some results out of it. I genuinely don't know. Just buy a filter. Buy one of my filters. I guarantee it'll protect you against your chemical warfare agents, and you don't have to pee into your face.
What? So speaking of that, if you want to avoid urination on your face,
My God, this just got derailed.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
So what, like, so for the average consumer, like what should they invest in?
So I always look at the C50 as the general purpose do-it-all. Okay. So the general purpose mask, this, after the success of the M50 with the DoD, law enforcement all around North America said, hey, we need this. We need something like this. Our masks are getting long in the tooth. They don't have the robustness that the M50 does. We're beating ours up on a daily basis. Can you essentially deliver something? And we said, absolutely. So what we did is we essentially took the M50, and all we did was take off the twin filter mounts and just put in a 40 millimeter on either side. So if you're left or right-handed, you can put a filter on wherever you'd like to. And then you just put on a traditional 40 millimeter filter. The reason I say that is because, one, this is an economical mask, right? So it's not the price of like the FM54, which is like around $900, I think. Jeffrey, please correct me if I'm wrong there, but around $900. And it's also not a proprietary filter mount that the military wanted. So you can go and find 40 millimeter filters all over the place, essentially, depending on what you're trying to filter against. But then for the same great technology that was in that M50 to make it super robust, this mask is going to last forever. I mean, it's going to be a workhorse for you, right? So that's the reason why I always suggest the C50 is it's kind of your do-it-all. It does everything really good. If you're trying to hone in on something like that SOCOM mask for shooting, okay, well then you need a slick cheek. If you're trying to hone in on something that is a super low breathing resistance, then you're going to do the FM50. But if you need that do-it-all thing, because you don't know what you're coming against, you're not planning on going and shooting with it on, then that C50 is probably going to be your best ticket.
And this one's utilized by most metropolitan police agencies, SWAT units, fast teams, across the world. I mean, we're deployed in 70 countries. So it just depends on the mission set. I was once told by another Avon engineer that, it's not about necessarily mitigating a threat, but it's about being able to operate in it for a period of time. So, and this one's just kind of universal. It happens to be Adam's favorite because, he can pull it up super quick and rip and roll with it. But I think it just comes down to what you're looking to acquire the mask for. What's your mission set? Do you train tactically? Are you law enforcement off duty that wants to continue to, train and educate yourself and orient yourself around utilizing this type of kit with the rest of your tactical equipment? Or are you just looking for something to get out of a danger area?
Yep. And if you ever had any questions about our product or what it does or what might best suit you, the inquiry line on the website goes to our customer service reps, And whatever they can't answer, they'll tie directly to an engineer. So you're going to get that SME, the subject matter expert, that's going to be able to tell you exactly what you're looking for, what our best solution to your problem might be, so on and so forth. Yeah, so we'll be here to try to answer anything you can possibly throw at us, and we've had some absolute wingdingers thrown at us a few times in the past.
Oh yeah.
And something that I just thought of, we had a conversation earlier, for people who might be experiencing maybe a little bit of sticker shock with, how expensive they are. Outside of the rigorous filter testing,
Mhm.
I had no idea that some agents could, like, if you have an inferior mask, if you bought whatever on Amazon, there are chemicals out there that will actually melt the rubber of the mask.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
our masks, our filters, every component of everything that we make is made to be in the absolute worst possible situations. Mustard, liquid mustard. I'm sure everyone remembers World War II mustard agent being released on the battlefield. Liquid mustard has this horrible, nasty property where it can find microfissures inside of plastics and it can exploit it and cause cracks and propagate inside the cracks. It will find the smallest of spaces and somehow wiggle its way through those tiny little cracks. And it can also soften plastic and just completely destroy it. So everything that we make is chemically hardened to resist stuff like that. That's the plastic of the filter bodies, obviously. That's the components in the inside, the adhesives that we use, the rubber, the outserts, every piece of nylon and buckle and harness that you saw on that ST54. All of it is 100% rated to make sure that it's not going to fall apart when you're in the environment that you really, really don't want it to fail in, right? Even things down to like a commo cable. So this commo cable, plug into your PTT, and then your peltors plug into this, and this goes in your mask, and now you can talk. It would really suck if I'm trying to communicate in that worst situation possible. Now I can't talk because this just melted in front of my eyes.
And
That's
then also, when you consider some of the other masks out there, like you talk about purchasing masks from Amazon and whatnot, a lot of companies out there will traditionally buy certain types of PPE in bulk and then white label them for different markets. So you don't necessarily know. Some are transparent about where they come from, and then others not so much. So it's like, do you really want to trust yourself in this situation, whether it be emergencies or whether you are law enforcement or you are in the military? It's like, do you want to trust it to having it come from an unknown source, or have something that is basically proprietary, manufactured right here, certified to the standard right here in the USA, that can achieve those goals and get you through that nasty situation?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I think when Dave Merrill, we put his post up of him testing the mask out.
It did really well, yeah.
Yeah, well, I remember one of the comments was saying like, oh well, $200 or however much it was listed for, seems like a bit much for that. And I think I responded to, like, if you're running out of clean air, I think you'll sell your soul. Like $200 is nothing, to secure clean breathing air.
Was it 3 weeks
thing.
without food, 3 days without water, 3 minutes without air?
I
mean, that's
3 minutes without air if you're like an Olympic diver.
No kidding.
Exactly.
Try holding your breath for 3 minutes, folks. See how long you last.
I mean, you also think about it in terms of your preparedness audience, right? Like, for instance, having lived in Southern California for 3 decades, that was probably my beginnings in preparedness, because once a year you prep, right? You prep for the big one. You're in the Bay Area, you prep for the big one. And, working in the news, we would take that entire week and feature segments about how to shut down your gas, how to purify water if you needed it, the supplies that you necessarily needed to have, not only to shelter in place, but to escape. So in a sense, a lot more people are preppers than they think. Some of them take it to additional levels based on what they feel is going to be necessary for them to have that education and resilience and be able to, you hear SHTF all the time. And it's like, what does that necessarily translate to you? And what do you think you need in a situation like that? Do you live near a chemical plant? You know, do you live near a nuclear facility? Do you live near a train yard or something like that? Infrastructure has
you don't
been,
even have to. The first year we moved here,
yeah,
we were out shopping. We're by a Safeway, and all of a sudden the barometric overpressure of a explosion washed over us. It shook all the windows and everything. I'm like, you know, my PTSD was going off. I'm like, what's happening, right? Uh, Somebody had a storage unit packed full of illegal fireworks, and
wow.
something cooked off, right? And now this whole storage unit right down the street is up in flames, right? And everything that's in there, everybody's stuff, you know, you never have any idea what's being, you know, being baked and
Right.
cooked in there,
And
right?
what
So
goes up must come down, right?
you know,
So you're
yeah, you
not
don't have
thinking
to be
about all
next
that.
to a chemical plant. You just got to be
Right.
next to some knuckleheads and not even realize it,
There's a
right?
lot of
So
knuckleheads.
there's a lot of knuckleheads out there. So yeah, I mean, I would argue like it doesn't matter where you're at, like having some sort of contingencies
And are
is
you
a
going to
helpful
put a
thing.
price tag on that? You know what I mean? I often say that, you know, it's not our job to necessarily tell you you need this product. It's our job to tell you that if you're already considering this product, why you should consider the highest standards.
Mhm.
And at the end of the day, if it's something that could potentially save my life, I may never need to use it, but if I do, I'm going to be glad I have it. It's kind of, you know, kind of like what he had said when he put on that thing. He's like, look, because I told him, I said, look, wearing this isn't fun, you know. And he's like, well, if you have to wear this, the situation that you're in probably isn't going to be fun, but you're going to be thankful you have it.
Well, how about this? How about this? So, anyone that complains about the price of our masks, let's take the FM54 out of the equation. I 100% understand that somebody that buys that is like really into it, or they have like
Really
a
into it.
reason, right?
Yeah.
But when you're talking about the FM50, the C50, the new miter that we've came out with, Jeff, you're the ecom guy. That's like what, about $400, I think, for the FM50 or the C50, like around about $400.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, we do have a pro kit for the FM50, which includes a couple of accessories and filters.
Sure,
And, you know,
but right around that price point, right?
right
And
around
then the
that price
miter
point.
is, I think, 275. Okay.
Correct.
How many handguns do you have? How many handguns do you have that were over $500? How many handguns do you have that are over 750? Are you carrying two handguns at a time? I only conceal carry one. I don't know. Maybe I'm not doing right by it. And I'm super pro 2A. Like that again. I grew up shooting. I think I would skip my next handgun purchase if I genuinely was concerned that I needed to have respiratory equipment.
And you think about preparedness, right? You know, immediately I can't tell you how many people I've come across that are like, I need more bullets and I need more food. And it's like, okay, but do you have a water source? Do you have medical supplies? Do you have PPE? Are you going to be able to get out and bug, you know,
Do you have
people
gas
talk
with
about bug
stabilizer
out.
in it?
Correct. Correct. You know, are you going to be able to effectively bug out if your situation calls for that? You know,
Mhm.
and are you going to have everything at your arsenal that, you know, one, you have, two, you know how to use, and
Right.
you're informed on everything about that and how it's going to potentially save your life.
Mhm.
Yeah, or especially, you know, if you've got a family with kids or you know, we call them like you know, vulnerable and endangered adults, right? You know,
Yep.
like maybe people who can't really they're not as healthy or robust, you know, as a you know, a healthy adult, right? They might need a little something extra to get them through whatever you're going through. Like, have you thought about them and how something, you know, a terrible situation would affect them? You know, these are really important topics to consider.
Yeah.
And especially
Absolutely.
if you have to react to a situation, you know, think about the time that it takes. You know, in January, that went in a mere matter of minutes from hundreds of acres to torching an entire coastal neighborhood in Los Angeles. And, you know, and then me having done broadcasting in the past, and I'm sitting here watching my former colleagues in the middle of it, and they're wearing their Lowe's respirator or whatnot, and other people are riding by with bicycles, holding up their phones and trying to film it. You saw a lot of different stuff come out of there, but they're not thinking about how that's going to affect them in the moment, and they're not thinking about how that's going to affect them later on.
So speaking of that, I don't have any more respirator questions for you guys, but
Okay.
something I always wrap up the podcast with is I ask my guests for their one golden nugget of survival wisdom. So if you had, I know you guys, we didn't really go into like prepping too much,
No.
or self-reliance or anything like that, but I know you guys are into it.
Mhm.
Well, if you
If you
don't
could
mind,
take,
we definitely want to show you the miter mask, because obviously that's on your April cover. And a
oh
lot of
yeah,
people
yeah,
got to come up and see that at CanCon, Arizona. And Adam, you have one, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
I got
Adam,
one.
take
Oof,
them
man, that
away.
would have been awkward. Um, yeah, so the MITRE stands for Modular Integrated Tactical Respirator. And the idea for this, well, I should say the beginnings of this came out of an experimentation event for SOCOM. And at the time we were participating, we had some equipment there. And it was that pissed off E4 Ranger, you know, who will tell you every problem in the world and how to fix it. He came up and go, I can't stand the gas mask. I don't like it. It's too big. It's too bulky. It's heavy. Whatever else. Give me a half mask that I can use on a more regular basis. We said, all right. You asked for it. We'll deliver it. So we started working on the miter for essentially that Ranger, and it turned out that everyone else followed suit with it. That said that that's actually something that they wanted as well. So the reason why it's modular is because we're looking at this as a foundation, right? So it's not just going to be the mask. It's not just a filter. It's not just a head harness. It's going to be the line of filters that come out after this. So right now we have a particulate filter that's going to be releasing with. It's a P100 filter. We're going to be looking at a whole different line of stuff that we're going to be releasing with this afterwards. We're looking at different communications ports with it. We're looking at different head harness solutions, depending on if you're wearing a helmet or not. We're looking at, we have a powered goggle, first of its kind to be ever introduced. It's a PAPR inside of a goggle, and it provides filtered air to your eyes. So you could wear it as a solution to not get irritant in your eye from CS or CN, riot agent, or dust or debris or mist or whatever else. Doesn't exist anywhere else. We came up with the filtered version of a powered goggle.
And for some of your viewers out there who don't know what a PAPR is, it means powered air purifying respirator. So
Yeah,
basically
sorry.
it will filter through. Yeah, the engineer here. I
Yeah,
have
right.
to explain.
Yeah. And so it's going to become the foundation of what's to come. And to be honest with you, we don't have all the answers. We're looking at industry, we're looking at users, we're looking at everyone else to tell us what they want to see with it. What do you want to see with this? Where do you want to see it go? We are incredibly keyed in with our customers to hear their wants with that. So yeah, anyways, that's the miter. If you have any questions about it, I'll answer whatever I can. It's releasing pretty soon, the mask,
Very
and
soon.
then
Yeah,
the
we're taking
goggles are going to be
pre-orders.
releasing. When did they say the goggles were, Jeffrey?
Later in the year.
Later in the year.
They're basically later in the year, and you can actually, and of course, a lot of your audience is going to ask, well, is this going to be available to me? Yes, and this is the shameless plug that I'm going to do: shop.avon-protection.com. And you can learn more about the miter. It's right there on our homepage. This has evolved from different feedback that we've gotten from not only warfighters, but for law enforcement. This is something in the wake of the fentanyl crisis. You talk about officers out there in major metropolitan areas conducting bus, drug lab interdiction, where they may come across fentanyl. Obviously, fentanyl is a crisis in this country, and this will actually protect against that as well. So it's something that is a little more portable. It's easier. You can stuff it into a cargo pouch, much easier to stick into your safety kit or first aid kit. This would have been very handy for people who were evacuating a neighborhood in terms of that fire. Now, not to say that you can sit and exist in a fire, but obviously if you're outside and making your way out of the danger area, this would be incredibly robust for that. But yes, this is available to civilians. We are taking pre-orders on it now. Unlike the NH15, this is a reusable device. You can swap out the filters in it. Actually, Adam, can you show them how easy that is? It's
Yeah,
a little different
it's
than the
just a proprietary bayonet mount. Slips on, slips off, and it's again left or right hand side depending on what shooter side you are.
Yeah, and that's another thing, as opposed to just the emergency situations that you may find it in. The reason that we had kind of brought it to CanCon, because it's quite interesting. You had all these people shooting suppressed weapons, so you're not thinking about the gas blowback or the potential lead poisoning. Adam's been diving really heavily into that because we're both shooters. And Adam, I mean, you found some helpful information in terms of like some pretty famous people out there, competition shooters and whatnot, that are being affected by lead.
Yeah, it's been popping up in the industry here and there of people getting their blood levels tested and being surprised about the amount of lead in their blood. So something like this would safeguard against that.
Yeah, even our own Ian Harrison from Recoil Magazine did a little PSA in the beginning of CanCon when we kicked it off, because he shoots all the time. That's something he's dealing with right now. So it's a very important. It's very relevant.
Absolutely.
And I don't know if you guys have intended it for this purpose, but you know, when you talk about having you know, filtered goggles and like a modular mask system and stuff like that, people who like work in shops, right?
Yeah.
You know, with dust and metal
Cutting
particulate,
concrete.
or maybe, yeah, like it's there's so many applications to that. So that's a really cool thing. And my shameless plug, I'm glad you brought it up. You know, if it's on the front cover of April's issue of Off Grid, issue 67, and right in there you go. Right inside, and on the cover, there's a link to it. If you want to learn more about where it's at, you can. We got all the info to connect you to it. So
yeah, and we also kind of took it a step further. I'm trying not to shine it against my light, but I think this is a neat feature for your magazine too, because I've often looked at the cover of magazines and like, God, what's he got there? I want to get that. You know, that's so cool. I want to learn more about it. But yes, we also, for anybody who is interested in this, obviously we can't apply the discount code to the pre-order right now, but for the rest of the site and anything else that you might be interested in, we did come up with one. Basically, when you go to the site, you'll put anything in your cart and you'll use the code offgrid10, and that will get you 10% off any of your purchases on the site.
Right on.
So piece of information, right? I think it's right where we left off before we did our shameless plug, and I apologize if that ran on a little bit too long.
It's all good.
Sorry.
By the way, that website is shop.avon-protection.com.
You can also find it at offgridweb.
Offgrid web. Well, yes.
So mine would be get in shape. It doesn't matter how kitted you are.
This is your golden nugget.
My golden nugget.
This is your golden nugget of survival wisdom from Adam Nelson.
So my golden nugget is going to be get in shape. It doesn't matter how cool your gun is. It doesn't matter how bullet resistant your level 4 plates are. It doesn't matter what camo pattern you're wearing. It doesn't matter how much food or water you have stockpiled up. If your heart gives out, you're going to give out. So stay in shape, get in shape. Round is not a shape. Get with it.
Right on.
Round is a shape, just not an ideal.
Not
just
right
not
shape.
an ideal shape to operate
human
in.
Physiology.
My golden nugget is continue to educate yourself. I think there is a lot of noise out there around products in preparedness. I think there's a lot of opinion out there. I would often challenge people to, you know, obviously if they're seeking education or information around preparedness, I would say gather up as much as you can. Be a sponge. Ask the questions. You know, if you're purchasing a particular type of product that could potentially save your life, educate yourself on that product. You know, ask, is it going to do what you're intending that product to do if you spend that kind of money on it? And, you know, like I said, it's preparedness, in my opinion, is not necessarily a destination. You're not achieving some one goal where you're like, okay, I'm good. I can stop
done
here. I think you're constantly evolving that. And I think you're constantly evolving that resilience and that mindset. And, you know, it's, I don't want to call it a hobby because I don't view it like that. But I just think the more you ask and the more you find out, the better educated you're going to be and informed to make that right decision.
Beautiful. Guys, thank you so much for joining me on here and sharing your story and what you're all about. You're clearly passionate about this, and you know, you're not Avon corporate shills. You believe in the product and you believe in what's going on. And
we want our end users to come home safe.
Really appreciate that authenticity. Yeah. So thank you for being on, guys.
Appreciate it. Thank you for having us.